Australians overseas are this morning scrambling to come home as authorities prepare to shut the country's borders in just over 12 hours' time. From 9 o'clock tonight, international travellers will be unable to enter the country, but citizens and residents are excluded from the new rules. The Prime Minister and state and territory leaders are reconvening National Cabinet this morning to consider the latest medical advice and whether further social restrictions are now needed.
There's been a surge in coronavirus infections in the past 24 hours. More than 700 cases are now confirmed in Australia. Meanwhile, Italy has now become the worst affected country in the world, with the death toll from COVID-19 overtaking China's overnight. We begin our coverage this hour with Lara Himes and Matt Doran in Canberra. Lara, can I start with you? Where are we at with the cases?
Well, the travel ban, to begin with, comes into effect from 9 o'clock tonight, Lisa. So with that, it will be all foreigners wanting to enter Australia. They will be prohibited from doing so. That does include people who are on student visas and working holiday visas too. However, if you are a student on a student visa or on a working holiday and you are already in Australia, you will be permitted to remain in the country. Now, this is all on the back of the airlines making drastic cuts to their travel flights. We have seen Qantas cut back 90% of their international routes, and likewise domestically about 60%. So some really big cuts to that. We have heard stories as well of Australians who have been stranded in some particular countries who have found it very difficult to heed to those recommendations to come home because they simply haven't been able to get there. An example of that is Peru. There is no direct flight from Peru to Australia, and people have been forced to make the choice to go to other destinations first, and hopefully they can make the travel ban or return to Australia by that travel ban this evening, which comes into effect. Now, in terms of the number of cases of coronavirus in Australia, we are sitting on about 700 cases in Australia, the 710 to be exact, 307 in New South Wales, 154 Victoria, so there is still a lag for Victoria behind New South Wales. Queensland getting up to 144. There has been a spike because many of those cases have been people who have either come into contact with people who have returned from overseas or they have returned from overseas themselves. South Australia double digits at 42, likewise with Western Australia and Tasmania, and the ACT and the Northern Territory in the single digits there. Now, if we just have a look at the trajectory, a big spike for New South Wales. We do know that the number of tests carried out in that particular state is nearing 40,000, and those tests are likely to continue for those who meet the criteria.
Thanks, Lara. Matt in Canberra there. How's the government responding to this worsening situation day by day?
Well, Lisa, we are hearing the use of the term recession, or at the very least, the people like the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, saying that it is going to be very difficult to avoid an economic recession here in Australia as the coronavirus takes a sledgehammer to Australian jobs and industries. It's expected that thousands of Australians will be losing their jobs as businesses go to the wall, struggling to maintain their operations during this outbreak. So it is something that is very concerning. One of the key responses so far has been an injection of funds into the financial system. Yesterday, the Reserve Bank put $90 billion into the money markets to ensure that banks could continue to lend. The federal government put in $15 billion to ensure that smaller banks and non-bank lenders could also continue to lend to small businesses, because they are seen as one of the key ways that the federal government and the broader the Australian community can stave off some of the worst responses or the worst impacts of the coronavirus outbreak, but it is still going to cause a lot of damage.
Do we see the second stimulus in the next couple of days? Have you got any hint of what's coming?
We are expecting this to be announced over the weekend before Parliament. A scaled-back Parliament returns on Monday. Parliament will only be dealing with the response to the coronavirus pandemic and won't be sitting for the entire week, it's expected. So we'll see that package outlined over the weekend. Many people suggesting it will have to include things such as income support for people who lose their jobs throughout this recession. Also, further support for small businesses. The Prime Minister and the Treasurer are saying that this package package will be significant, that it will be larger than the $17.6 billion package we saw just over a week ago, and that it will be primarily aimed at cushioning the blow from the coronavirus pandemic. Extraordinary times calling for some very extraordinary measures.
Matt and Lara, thanks.